Why were the cartoons of the early to mid 2000s so fucking clean? I was doom scrolling through Instagram and found the page about nostalgic cartoons, and I realized that we really took some of these old joints for granted. Chaotic, gas. Godzilla the Animated Series, banger. Code Lyoko, goated. There was really more care for a lot of these shows that when compared to modern animation really distinguishes itself as a bygone era. And I know there were cartoons in this era of television that had a more cartoonish art style, more so cementing itself as a world of make-believe, shows like Grim Adventures, Ed and Eddie, but I'm talking more so about shows that, while episodic, had an overarching plot, but also, I guess, more grounded designs. And I know that shows like Regular Show, Adventure Time, and Gravity Falls exist to fit that description, Adventure Time less so than the others for obvious reasons. I want to go even further niche. I want to talk about the shows that were animated, but it didn't seem like it was marketed towards young kids for the most part, even though the shows that I already listed were great examples. And while going through the list of shows from that time in television, I realized something that maybe a few of you out of the 12 who are watching picked up on. Where did all the YA shows go? In case you need a bit more spelling out, YA means young adult, and this demographic is for kids from the early to late teens. I myself have noted that there are more and more animated properties that are more suited for adults than there are specifically for teenagers. Now, you're probably wondering why it is that I even care about this. I mean, it's not like I'm a kid anymore. Believe it or not, some of the best stories in recent memories comes exactly from this space. The kind of entertainment that still captures the hearts of its fans to this very day. And I know you guys already have most likely watched some of the examples that I'm going to list off for you now. Spectacular Spider-Man, hands down one of the best iterations of Spider-Man in the animated medium. 2005's The Batman, in my humble opinion, right up there with the animated Batman series of the late 90s. The entire Ben 10 catalog up until the reboot. Some people didn't like Omniverse, I enjoyed it for what it was, but Alien Force and Ultimate Alien definitely have a place in my heart. It was because of this show is why I started going by Ben. Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, one of the last shows produced by Marvel that didn't try to homogenize itself with the MCU, and I'll never forgive them for that. Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. The greatest, the greatest Justice League DC superhero anything that we have ever been blessed with. If you ever put DC properties in the tier list, this should be S 1,000,000% of the time. If anyone has a differing opinion, face the wall. Fuck, even 2003's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and actually my first introduction to the series as a whole. And don't get me started on Symbiotic Titan. The cancellation of this show was a huge upset for me when I found out, but at least it didn't end on a cliffhanger, so there's that. What do all these shows have in common? Well, firstly, they were animated. Secondly, they were marketed towards kids, but were they really? Back then, studios were not afraid to make the younger audiences actually think when it comes to plot and character development. One of the best examples from that era, hands down, would have to be Teen Titans. I bet you thought I forgot about that one. This show was dealing with some heavy subject matter back then. The biggest overarching theme of the series would have to be identity. Throughout the series, each of the Titans got their own episodes centering around them that allowed us to view the world through their lens, to explore who these guys were, what their values and belief systems were, what they think about themselves and how they wanted to be viewed. Even though this was a cartoon, this show could be really somber sometimes, truly a far cry from the treatment they've been getting as of late. Each character had motivations and unique interactions with one another and the characters that inhabited the world. You wanted to see Robin be a great leader, Starfire get a hang of life on Earth, Beast Boy to be seen as more than just an annoying kid brother, Cyborg to realize that being half machine ain't half bad, or even Raven to lighten up a little. These little animated dudes were comfort characters for a lot of people, and the audience craved more. Why do you think Young Justice popped off the way that it did? It took everything we loved about Teen Titans, from complex and easily digestible story arcs, and it cranked it up to 11. Now everyone had depth. There was history between each character that we couldn't wait to get our hands on. It sucked that it was cancelled, but because of its cult following, it managed to get revivified and pushed to HBO Max. Yay. They even had the Justice League in the show, and they managed to keep a perfect balance of the Justice Leaguers as well as, the sidekick superhero teen people without them overshadowing or minimizing the plot. Ben, where are you going with this? Give the kids back their complex television, and it'll give me something to watch too. Let them have their stories that are character driven and rely on dialogue instead of spectacle. I mean, of course have spectacle too, but there should be meaningful interactions that lead up to action or drama and the like to make the climaxes all the more satisfying. You have no idea how broken I was when I began to realize that SpongeBob's writing quality was going down the drain. Episodes became more about pure goof spoofs and actual setups that lead to punchlines. Well executed punchlines.
Ben, don't you think there's a better example than SpongeBob?
There are, but I'm really passionate about this show. Seasons 1 to 4 were goated, and I always burst at the sides watching it. To this day, I still quote from this show. It has been prolific in my life. I have a working theory that SpongeBob is actually a trickster deity that gets enjoyment out of menacing the citizens of Bikini Bottom. In the earlier seasons, he's always one step ahead. He always seemed like he was in the know and only did things to mess with his friends. And the only reason there were episodes that didn't work out for him was because as a trickster, he's bound by the rules of the game, with the only outcome that matters is the one that's funniest. I mean, come on. Imagination Box? The Sea Bear episode? What about when they were lost in the woods? The episode when SpongeBob convinced Squidward to give away all of his belongings for a piece of paper? The writing is on the walls, people. Wake up. Hold on. Let's get back to the topic. Remember Avatar: The Last Airbender? The show about the latest incarnation of a mythical human weapon forced with the choice of having to kill literally Hitler or allow the world to burn? I don't care what you say, this is not a kid's show. I mean, it was, obviously, but the subtext of an impending genocide at the hands of an oppressive dictatorship was heavily implied. But, oh, look, a tiny girl is beating up a huge guy. That's awesome. At this time in Western media, watching someone smaller beat up on a larger opponent was still novel. The show had the philosophy of finding another way, that there's some good in everyone, but when there isn't, you have to do what you must. Aang wasn't much of a fighter, you see, not in capability, but morally speaking. Even when it seemed like the only choice was to ice flame Hitler, Aang carved his own path and reintroduced bending. It's like, you know, when you bend someone's bending so they can't bend anymore. It's great. This show, just like Teen Titans, was a perfect mixture of comedy, drama, action, and adventure, with banging art direction. To this day, the debate of whether Avatar is considered anime is still alive and well. And also, it's not. Anime is Japanese animation. Yeah, anime means animation, but it's a term that was specifically given to animation from the Eastern Front. So yeah, but if you think I'm wrong, that's more than okay. When it comes to the catalog of shows that will stand the test of time for the modern era, in my opinion, there aren't really that many that stand out, at least on cable television. And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of shows that were marketed towards young kids and tweens that I, as an adult, would still consider pretty darn great. The Amazing World of Gumball, Over the Garden Wall, anybody? Streaming really changed the game for the kind of media that people can be introduced to in the animated medium. What's also unfortunate, however, is that a lot of good shows get passed up on, mainly because a lot of the time people aren't going to watch something they aren't familiar with when there are more familiar options to choose from. And when you look at what's going on with cable, the shows that dominate aren't the kind that would really hold water once the demographic it's being marketed to grows out of it. I'm looking at you, Teen Titans Go. Guys, that show has been going on for over 10 years. I was literally a 9th grader in high school when this came out. I can't. It would be disingenuous though if I said the show didn't have its gems here and there. There's a meme online that whenever you see TTG content, it's either going to be dog piss or absolute gold, no in between. But if I came up to you and said, hey, you want to watch Teen Titans Go or Ed, and Eddie on HBO Max, which one are you honestly choosing? I'm so sick of adult animation that doesn't take the medium of cartoon seriously and just produces actual slop. That's where you find Brickleberry, the later seasons of Family Guy, Harley Quinn. Even though I have my gripes about this show, it's still better than the other ones listed. The Scooby-Doo spinoff, Velma, and Big Mouth. Why Netflix decided to keep this show instead of Inside Job is just beyond me. To summarize my ramblings for the last 8 minutes, amazing things have been created in the medium of animation when the creators are constrained by the shackles of needing to market towards kids. That's where we get all the great entertainment that reaches out to a wider demographic. It's the same kinds of shows that you can watch as a kid and be entertained, and then watch later in life to get all the jokes that you missed when you're older. Hold on, does anyone else remember Dan Versus? This show was honestly ahead of its time, and it's a shame that it only ran for 3 seasons. Every episode was a freaking banger. This was a YA show if there ever was one. If you haven't watched it, definitely do. If you already have, give it another go. In my humble opinion, I feel like things have become a bit too sanitized, maybe too paint by the numbers. Now we're in this era of animation that's punctuated with toothless remakes, homogenized art styles, or even has-been hotel. There needs to be a renaissance, darn it. I want to watch cartoons again, and I know I already can, seeing that I pay taxes and all, but if you've watched the whole video, then you know what I mean. Peace. We had Static Shock, Dexter's Laboratory, Invader Zim, Kick Buttowski, Transformers had a bunch of series. Man, don't even get me started.